So let's take our camera moves and animation to the next level by setting up a 3D scene using our 3D view workspace. To start with, up here, we can click this button to enable 3D for this shot. And you see we get a grid defining the ground plane, and this X and rectangle is actually our camera's point of view. To get a better sense of what we're looking at, let's switch over to the 3D view workspace. First, let's do some customizing. We won't need the 3D graph window for the time being, so I'll collapse that to give us more space. Then we're going to need our tools, so I'm going to enable the Tools toolbar. And now let's look at our panels. So this panel is the stage view we had before. We also have our timeline and our set of tabs over here like we used to. But these ones over here are new. This panel is the camera view. This is super useful because it will always show exactly what the camera is seeing regardless of what we're seeing in these other two views. This is what will actually show up in the animatic or on our boards. And then this panel is top view. This shows us our scenes from the top. This is going to be very useful when we get to positioning the different layers of our scene. You can also enable a side view too. Now let's look at how we move around in the stage view. Just like when we were in SketchUp, we want to be able to rotate, pan, and zoom. And there are a few different keyboard shortcuts for doing that, depending on what kind of mouse you have. Since I'm using a drawing tablet, I mix and match them like this. In the Tools palette, on the drop-down under the hand, there's also a 3D navigation tool. But it's worth it to get the hang of the keyboard shortcuts, so you don't have to spend any time switching to a specific tool. So here in the stage view, I can rotate, pan, and zoom. And you can see that currently all of our layers are on this one plane, and our camera is looking at it. So how do we actually move these things? Well, we use the same tools that we've been using. If we use the camera tool and select our camera, we can click and drag on one of the 3 axis arrows to move it around, or one of the 3 circles to rotate it. Also, now that we're in 3D, you might want to use this field in the tool properties to set the focal length of the camera. And if you need to, remember you can reset the camera using this button. And if you want to reset the stage view itself to look through the camera, click this button. This will help you if you actually want to draw something. You need to be looking straight at the plane you're trying to draw on. So if you have a layer that's been rotated, so it's not facing the camera straight on, you won't be able to draw on it. In that case, you'd need to select that layer and then click the Look at Selected button. Then you can draw on it again. So that's how you move the camera. But to move layers, you use the Layer Transform tool. Just select the layer you want to move, and you have the same sort of positioning sphere that we had with the camera. Now for a scene like this, the main tool you're probably going to want to use to set it up is this tool here, called the Maintain Size tool. What this does is move a layer back or forward along the Z-axis, but it also scales it at the same time so that it appears to be the same size in camera view. This is great for setting up a shot like this where the layers are supposed to represent different levels of foreground and background. We can position them in 3D while maintaining their appearance in camera view. But then, when we start moving the camera, suddenly we get a sense of depth. Just make sure the layers extend far enough that we don't see their edges. So now that we know how to position things in 3D space, it's really easy to do 3D camera moves and animations. Well, it's all the same principles. We set a keyframe for the start position, and set a keyframe for the end position. Then we position the camera where we want it to start and end. And we can also add additional keyframes. And we can rotate around in stage view to see the path the camera takes through the scene. Then we can use the play controls to test how it will move in camera view. Then we adjust our timing and add easing. Now we can use the same techniques to animate our Phoenix group with the Layer Transform tool. I'm going to set keyframes that make it come flying out of the background towards the camera. Now it's just a matter of getting the timing right to match up with the camera move. And remember, you can animate more than just position. Here I'll change the rotation too. And there we go. So that's a really simple way you can use 3D scenes, by arranging and animating 2D layers in 3D space. But in the next video, we'll look at how you can import actual 3D objects. I'll see you there.